what's klezmer? Klezmer music is special. It has a history drawing on the traditions of the Ashkenazi Jews and also Eastern European folk traditions. We'll talk a little bit more about klezmer in the next 15 or so minutes. The word itself, the etymology, comes from the sense of a container for music. So it was originally thought of the instruments being the containers for music. And ultimately, we think of the musicians themselves as being containers of music. The scale that there are several scales for klezmer music, but the one that really makes the point sounds like this. Whoops, let me get that louder. Okay, wait a minute. Neat, huh? I'll do it again. It just rings. What they say is that klezmer music is poignant, and you hear that in that sort of minor, it sounds Middle Eastern, flat in there, but it's also joyous. It's sassy and it's spiritual. It's celebratory and it's mournful. It really presents as being full of all the possibilities of life. Every village had a klezmer band in Eastern Europe. Every wedding was there they were entertaining the klezmer band, and any of us who have danced the hora have danced to klezmer music. Any of us who have seen or sung Fiddler on the Roof know a little bit about klezmer. That was certainly a way to popularize it for the American public. But it has a very rich tradition, and we're going to go all the way back to 70 BCE in Jerusalem, when the sacred temple was destroyed. When that happened, the Jews in Palestine, Israel, Jerusalem, migrated. The Sephardim went west across North Africa and up north to Spain. The Ashkenazi Jews went north and then east to Russia, and west then to Poland and Germany. The music that they brought with them at that point was a mournful melodies mourning the loss of the temple in Jerusalem. But music was tricky too, because they saw decadence in the music of the Greek and Roman cultures. So it wasn't until really the 9th century in the Rhine Valley in Germany that when Yiddish was being developed, that this kind of music that had the blend of the mourning and the spirituality with the joy of folk music started really coming to be. So that's the 9th century. Skipping now to the mid 1700s is when klezmer, as we know it now, really takes its roots. A rabbi at the time, whose name was Baal Shem Tov, started what is now called the Hasidic movement. And we think probably of the Hasidic movement in contemporary times, in our times, as being ultra orthodox and strict, very, very devout form of Judaism, ultra orthodox. But back in the mid 1700s, it really was a religious revival movement. Not severe at all, but rather joyful and a welcoming of the union between the secular and the sacred. This was revolutionary, and the idea that there was no separation between the secular and the spiritual at that time was really a wild idea. We can go back, however, to the Hebrew Testament and find this same kind of theology back in ancient times, but it had gotten encrusted over time, as religious institutions often do, with rules and regulations that solidify things. And so in the mid 1700s, along with, when you think of it, other revolutionary ideas that are taking place all around the globe, Hasidism comes to be. It's instead of a religion of self-mortification and piety, rigorous, vigorous, passionate prayer, expression of prayer, comes to be an expression of the immanence of God. So the Klezmer music, while it sounds so, kind of free and wild, it's trying to express, when you look back at this history to the mid 1700s, this joyful, passionate communion with God. It's a spirituality of melody, they call it. It's ecstatic kind of prayer, and often wordless, although not always, but often wordless. And it seeks to form a communion with the divine spark within us all. So when you think back to now, as I said, the 1700s, you have all these political revolutions going on all over the world, rejecting the existing order, the hierarchy, and what the Hasidic Jews then, who were also developing this klezmer music, were trying to do was substitute spiritual, candid, simple songs and dance. Klezmer was meant to be danced to into their everyday lives, their sacred lives, as well as their secular lives. Beautiful prayer that is quoted again in folk dance footnotes, says it beautifully. Our Father in heaven hates sadness and rejoices when his children are joyful. And that's what klezmer music is trying to express. Prayer filled with song and dancing is essential to creating communion, to feeling and expressing communion with God. So here we are, we're in Germany and Eastern Europe. We've absorbed the folk music traditions that are around us in the various cultures, especially Romani, or as we pejoratively used to refer to Romani as gypsy music. You can hear, again, in that flat tone, that minor kind of key, the Romani influence. And the communities of Belarus, Lithuania, of course, Russia, Ukraine, very much so. And Poland was rife with klezmer musicians. Most of the instruments were portable because the musicians were called upon to hither and yon, this wedding and that wedding, and migrating even from community to community. The clarinet is a popular instrument in klezmer music. The violin, the fiddler on the roof, the violin is very important too. The passionate singing and dancing while in the act of worship is tied tightly to Jewish festivals and joyous observances. In present-day Romania, you still find that amazing cross-pollination between the Romani folk music and the klezmer music. Klezmer musicians started using Turkish scales too in like the 19th century. It's an absorbing sort of development of music. When klezmer moved to the United States in the early 20th century, it picked up jazz. So there are jazz rhythms and harmonies in contemporary klezmer music that you, of course, wouldn't have heard in the mid-1700s. So where does the jazz influencing klezmer and klezmer influencing jazz, which comes first? It's part of American culture now too. It fell out of interest, really, and perhaps because of the violence and horror of the two wars, especially the Second World War, when the oppression of the Jewish minority was so horrific and severe. But klezmer has come back into interest and popularity in the 80s and 90s, and there are many academic studies now of klezmer music. I wish we could take questions, but that's not possible. The most important thing that I take away from learning a little about klezmer music is its emphasis on the joy and passion of expressing the sacred that is all around us and within us. What a terrific, joyful thing that is. So when we sing our klezmer music during our concerts this year, with our la, 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 we are not just proclaiming a simple joy, we are heralding historical, theological threads so important to the Ashkenazi Jews. So, Mazel Tov, have a wonderful concert.